This is the new Maruti Suzuki Dzire, and in this brand new generation it wants to be a little more upscale, more polished, a little more suave if you will, and it wants to drop all traces to the Swift, literally and figuratively. Now does it manage to do that? What's it like? Should you buy one? All details in this review. I've read the comments. It looks like an Audi, it looks like a Honda, it looks like a Volkswagen. I get where you're coming from, but there's one thing you cannot fault Suzuki for. It is for making a proportionate small sedan. This is still a sub 4 meter vehicle, and getting the proportions right is a task. And what they've managed to do by breaking away from the Swift face is give the Dzire an identity that is upmarket and properly unique. That cutesy mousy face of the Swift, well, that's gone completely. You now get horizontally stacked headlamps that are connected by this massive piano black trim with a chrome accent. The grille in its entirety, if you ask me, looks a little like the Innova Krista. If you agree, let me know in the comments. Let's circle back to the headlamps. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pods of LED lights here. 4 of these are low beam, 2 of them are high beam. There's a DRL strip down here and the indicator is tucked in right there. What I wish Maruti Suzuki could have done, the DRL strip, that should have doubled up as the indicator. That is a bit of a miss, but otherwise the front profile looks really clean. You've got a black insert here, the fog lamp housings right there, and overall when you look at the Dzire in your rear view mirror, you'll notice that instead of feeling narrow and tall, it feels low and wide. It looks a little bigger than it actually is, and that is always a good thing. Like I said, bigger is better, and that is especially true of these alloy wheels. Maruti Suzuki is still running a set of 15-inch wheels. It gets this dual tone design. I'm not a fan of both the size or the design. I think the design's a little busy. It makes the wheel look smaller than it actually is. The Dzire should have got a set of 16-inch wheels, but 185/65 R15, that is what you get. On the side, the surfacing is very clean, not a lot of cuts, creases, sharp lines, none of that, just a very basic silhouette that simply works. From here you can see that the stance of the car is a little lower than before. The roofline kind of presses downwards and makes the car look a little more sporty and elegant at the same time. My second favorite angle to look at the Dzire, after the front of course, is the rear 3/4, where again it looks proportional and you get to appreciate these smoked out tail lamps better, and also that subtle chrome strip that connects the two. Also, I'm glad that Maruti Suzuki hasn't gone overboard with the use of chrome here, and there is a subtle boot lip spoiler to boot as well. But here's the thing, and this kind of, let's say, annoys me a little bit. Maruti Suzuki has to stop its obsession with these really skinny, weedy, mileage spec tires. If these tires were sitting flush with the body line, and if they were 16s, yeah, the Dzire would have looked a lot better, at least to me. Now, if you agree with that, let me know. For now, let's look at the boot. Now, here's something rather weird. I'm hitting unlock. You heard it, unlock. Now, the key is with the cameraman. I'm pressing the button, but the boot refuses to open. Now, that is because it requires the key to be in proximity for the boot to open from the outside. Otherwise, someone will have to pull a lever on the inside for the boot to open. This honestly feels like unnecessary cost cutting, but Maruti is known to put in rear seat belt reminders without putting in load sensors, so I'm not entirely surprised, but yeah, this could have been avoided. Anyway, boot space, we've got 382 liters of it. We've got one cabin size trolley bag here, a full size trolley bag here, a backpack there, and there is space for a couple more duffel bags and knickknacks on the side. That is something that you can very easily fit in. The loading lip is not too high, the mouth is wide enough, and the boot itself is quite square and well shaped, so you're not going to have issues storing luggage or taking it out. So for your weekend trips with the family, the Dzire, not really going to give you an issue, except for this minor annoyance of course. Alright, now let's discuss the interiors. Is it similar to the Swift? Yes. Is it the same? Absolutely not. There are quite a few obvious differences, starting with the color theme of course. Maruti Suzuki has chosen a black and beige combination, as should be the case with a more family oriented car and for that proper sedan experience. Now you'll see a lot of beige being used on the dashboard, on the lower half of the dashboard, on the door pads, and the seats are beige as well. Now what this does is make the cabin feel a little wider and a little larger than it actually is. In terms of design, this section of the dashboard is different, where you'll notice wooden inserts, dull grey inserts instead of the all black treatment that the Swift gets. In terms of quality, I'd say it is what you'd expect from a Dzire. It's not really setting any benchmarks in the segment, and it does not feel outright cheap either. It is acceptable for the price that you'll be willing to pay for a product like this. As in, the graining of the plastic is acceptable here. It's actually quite smooth on this surface here. The door pads feel a little flimsy, the power window switches and the stalks feel a little light to use, but other than that, for the price, the quality should be acceptable. But Maruti Suzuki could have taken this generation change as an opportunity to add a little more premiumness to the Desire's cabin, and I think they could have achieved that by introducing leatherette upholstery to the Dzire, at least in the top variant. They have stuck to fabric upholstery for the seats, and you got it on the door pads as well, but it's not particularly smooth. It feels a little abrasive, for lack of a better word, and that could have been different. Sure, you can get leatherette seat covers as accessories, but they're partial seat covers, at least for the front, which I'm assuming is because of the side airbags, but that's just not the same as having proper leatherette upholstery, is it? You do get a leather wrapped steering wheel and you have some leather around the gear lever, but I feel not having leatherette upholstery is a bit of a missed trick. Right then, now let's talk features. Compared to the Swift, you get a grand total of 2 extra features, both quite interesting, at least from a brochure point of view. First, you've got an electric sunroof and you have a 360-degree camera. Now, the usability of this camera, I'm not particularly a fan of. You can't really toggle through views, or you cannot see a particular angle, and it's not the smoothest to use either. And honestly, if you know how the 360-degree camera is executed in the latest Tatas, that is how it needs to be done. This feels like it's a feature that is there for a tick mark on the brochure. But this, yeah, quite a few families are going to be happy about having a sunroof in the Dzire. On the top spec Dzire, you get power folding mirrors, you get a push button start stop, a leather wrapped steering wheel of course with steering mounted audio controls, volume and source buttons are right here, call buttons are here, voice command buttons here, you get the buttons for the cruise control on the right side of the steering wheel, automatic headlamps but no automatic wipers, you've got automatic climate control right there. In terms of charging options, we've got a 12-volt socket right here, a Type A charger there, and a wireless charger right there. Maruti Suzuki has also provided 2 chargers right here, which are in between the front seats. I think that's a neat touch because both the front and rear occupants can use it if need be. There's a Type A and a Type C there, and you've got a nifty space to store an phone right there. The dials, I love them. They're pure, clean analog dials for the tachometer and the speedometer. And the tachometer is actually slightly larger in size, as in the fonts are larger. That looks really nice. The central screen is basic in terms of the kind of information it gives you, and my real annoyance with it is that I have to use this Dundee to actually toggle through the menus. If those buttons were just on the steering wheel, I'd be so much happier. This is the staple Maruti screen, the larger 9-inch screen that we've seen in a host of Maruti Suzuki cars. You get Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. User interface is easy to get used to. Nothing particularly outstanding about the way the system is laid out or the audio quality for that matter, but it gets the job done. If you aren't an audiophile, I don't think you'll feel the need for an upgrade. What's missing? Well, I think it could do with an auto-dimming IRVM, and a front armrest would have been great. But other than that, what the Dzire is doing in terms of features, I'd say it's doing just enough. and that's a good place to be. In the rear seat of the Dzire, there is some good news and bad news. Let's start with the good news first. For a 6-footer like me, I've got a fist's worth of knee room behind my own driving position. And despite this front seat being pushed all the way down, I have got space under the front seat to comfortably slide my feet under. What I have an issue with, however, is the headroom. With my head on the headrest, I've got very little headroom left, and I get why this scooped out section is supposed to help, but this should have been directly above my head and not in front of it. As far as width is concerned, you can seat 3 occupants here if required, but you will be kind of brushing shoulders and trying to jostle a little for that little bit of space. There's no third headrest, but you do get a proper 3-point seat belt for the central occupant should they choose to travel with you. No real amenities here other than the rear AC vents and those shared charging ports with the front occupants. Finally, 2 things. The frontal visibility is kind of affected in part because of these extra large headrests and because the sunroof mechanism takes a lot of space on the roof here. No real issues with the sideward visibility. This portion might be a little better in the non-sunroof versions. Second, I feel that Maruti Suzuki could have opted for a slightly firmer seat cushioning. At the rear, it's okay in terms of the seat back, but the front, this is a little too soft, and if you intend on doing long journeys in the vehicle, this might trouble you a little after a couple of hours. Before we get on to driving the new Dzire, I have to tell you that it is every bit as practical as you want it to be. The front door pads can house proper 1-liter bottles and you've got space left over for your knickknacks. The glove box is adequately sized. There are a couple of cup holders just in front of the gear lever, and you've got a shallow space behind the gear lever, probably to store your wallet. You've got the central space for your cell phone, and if you are traveling in the rear of the Dzire, again properly usable bottle holders in the doors, a couple of cup holders in the rear central armrest, and you get a seat back pocket, but that is only on the passenger side. With the new Dzire, you've got a choice. Actually, you don't have a choice. You get just one engine option. This is the new 1.2-liter 3-cylinder engine that debuted in the Swift, and now it makes its way to the Dzire as well. About this engine then, well, engines, for lack of a better term, it just gets the job done. There's nothing superlative about the way it gets on with its business. It will get you from point A to point B. Now, if I compare it to the older K-series engine, there are 2 things I miss. One, the silence. That was a 4-cylinder engine. This is a 3-cylinder engine, and it will make that fact felt. You will feel vibrations, especially on the floorboard and the pedals. Second, the K-series engine was a lot more eager and a lot more free to rev. It felt exciting and you kind of wanted to drive it fast. With this engine, there's a lot of bottom end torque, so you will not have to change gears very often inside the city. It is a lot more drivable in that sense, but it does not feel as fun or as engaging. If you take it out on the highway, you won't really have issues with power. You can maintain 80 or 100 kilometers per hour all day long, but getting a move on from that point on is going to be a challenge and will require a downshift or possibly 2. Now, Maruti Suzuki is offering a 5-speed AMT with this engine, and you can consider it if you foresee very heavy city use. I think the AMT is convenience spec. It does the basic job of taking the stress out of your left knee. It's not the smoothest unit there is. It is very eager to upshift. So when you're driving at a relaxed pace, you'll find it go through the gears rather quickly, and when you need the slightest bit of move on, it will downshift. The upshifts and the downshifts could have been a little smoother, and even on inclines, the AMT kind of gets caught off guard every now and then. On the whole, the driving experience is very neutral. As a family car, I don't see any major issues with it. And yes, the Dzire is a very comfortable family car. The suspension is quiet, the cabin remains poised, it does not throw occupants around even over bad roads, so it is a comfortable car. It has lost a bit of the plushness that the older generation has. The suspension feels slightly firmer than it used to be on the older model, but it's never to the point of being uncomfortable. In fact, with the ground clearance that the Dzire has, you can take it over those kacha pakka village roads as well without breaking a sweat. And finally, because this in effect is an extension of the Swift's chassis, you can have a bit of fun with it if you want to. The steering is predictable, it's neutral, it's quick. It's not outright fun, but if you want to, it will dance along. Now, before we wrap this video up, let's talk safety. On the Dzire, you've got 6 airbags, ABS with EBD, traction control, tire pressure monitoring system, ISOFIX child seat mounts, a whole lot of safety that's bundled in. All that Maruti Suzuki needs to do is get this car crash tested, get a good star rating, and shut the haters up. So they went ahead and did just that. Yup, the Dzire gets a full 5-star rating from the global NCAP. Onwards. For all the sensible bits that a car absolutely must do, those bits the Dzire gets spot on. It's spacious, it's got a big boot, it rides very well, it's comfortable, the engine will be reliable, it's fuel efficient, you'll have no issues with the service network, and you will never struggle with resale for a Dzire. What does it do better than the old one then? Well, it is more desirable than before, especially with the way it looks. Looks properly premium, and Maruti Suzuki has made an effort to add in a few more features for that added bit of premiumness. What it could have done better was just dial up this premium quotient up to 11. It could have had a more premium interior with leatherette upholstery, possibly a few more features too, like an auto-dimming IRVM, auto wipers, or ventilated seats even. Now with the Swift, we saw Maruti Suzuki messed up the pricing a little where it didn't seem all that value for money. They've not made that mistake with the Dzire, which makes this quite easy to recommend.